So we're here because of this directorate that was put forth many years ago, which refers to the FIAR Directorate. And FIAR stands for the Financial Improvement and Audit Readiness Plan. And it's the DoD's effort in which to ensure that they have full audit readiness for all of their defense property, plant, equipment, operating material, and supplies. Now, the FIAR readiness goal was to be ready and completed by 2017. And we'll talk about the results in a moment in terms of what we've seen happen since that time. But make no mistake, it puts the highest priority on accountability for all mission critical asset information to be reported through to these accountable property systems of record. So that means that if you're anywhere in the custody chain of any of this equipment, this responsibility falls upon you. Along with that is to verify the inventory completeness and the existence of that inventory starting in the fiscal year 2018, which obviously we're well beyond at this point. This all began back in 2011. And that initiative started with our Defense Secretary, Leon Panetta. He called it an all hands on deck effort and really got the wheels in motion. He's coming from a very financial focused background himself, and so he understands the importance of ensuring that all of the assets and inventory being accounted for ensures that it hits the balance sheet and can pass an audit. Now that fast forward here to the more recent leadership in this space is the 2018 reinforcement of that commitment from the DoD Comptroller, David Norquist, who's now the Deputy Secretary of Defense. And that in his words, by spring, we will have over 1,200 auditors inspecting the DoD from book to floor and from floor to book. Adding since that time that being under audit will be our new normal. This is not a one-time exercise. This is year over year, ensuring that inventory and property gets accounted for at all areas within the Department of Defense and federal agencies beyond. This schedule helps shed some light on the waves that were leading up into this fiscal year 2018 goal that they set forth. As you can see here, leading up into 2018, which was actually the DoD's full financial statement to be consolidated, a goal that they did not achieve, and we'll come back to that. It's these areas of focus that we want you to focus on, which is that existence and completeness of the mission critical assets, both for your general funds and your working capital funds areas. Now, there's a whole nother layer to this too that gets into the financial accountability, meaning that from whatever is requested as a purchase through to when it's received in and hitting the books and invoicing and so forth, that's all being accounted for as well. But our focus for this session really is on government property. And if you feel like you want to do a deeper dive into any of this, you can go to the Defense Comptroller's Office government website that will give periodic updates and share with you the progression of what's been taking place in this area. So let's talk about the scope here for a moment here and talk about the criticality of these assets and what kind of assets are in the minds of the military. One is what you would very logically think. You've got military equipment, ships, aircraft, combat vehicles. Then you've got your inventory, your supplies, your rations, your spare parts, and your fuel. Then you lead into operating materials and supplies, your ammunitions, your missiles, your munitions, as well as your general equipment, material handling equipment, training and simulation, tooling, testing. So with all of this, the information that the military and the Pentagon need start with this short list that we have listed here, starting with the unique item identifier. And that gets back to the strong theme of why IUID is important to this, which we're going to get a little deeper into. But that assigns a global unique identifier to any given property or equipment and is crucial to ensuring that when you upload it to their database, it's got its own unique record and it's not being counted multiple times in the system. You also will have to provide the category and type of asset, the location of that asset, the status, its readiness, description, the custodian, and controlling or financial reporting entity. They want to make sure that they're not double counting the same asset that might be under custodian and on a few people's books, and ensure that uniqueness of it. Now, all of that data that you're capturing and maintaining for the government has to flow back to these accountable property systems of record. Those are the government systems that they will be ultimately it will be that master source of data, or the single pot of truth that we like to call it. So the goal here is that the reporting entities must record assets in those APSRs, verify the asset existence, book to floor, and that the records themselves are also complete and that they are in fact floor to book. And so that means that good, accurate databases and systems to support this has to be really at the forefront of this effort, which really leads us into why IUID, or item unique identification, has become a cornerstone for all of this. So when it comes to scope, the reality is the DoD has to account for all the serially managed assets with this unique identification standard. Obviously, you're not going to put a unique identifier on every item of consumables. You're going to still report that accordingly. But what you'll need to do is for any legacy items that qualify, any government property, and any newly acquired items that are deliverables coming from you if you're a contractor, you need to ensure that the item unique identifier is part of your data set in your system that you're transmitting off when you ship something to the government, and that the physical mark in the form of this two-dimensional barcode is being applied to that asset, to that item. Now, the good news is that this barcode standard is in fact the industry best practice for quickly and efficiently identifying, marking, and tracking critical assets. We're seeing this in many other industries being used as a great way of marking an asset so someone can track it downstream through a chain of custody. Healthcare is one of those areas, and the unique device identification that go into the use of medical devices in our world today is adopting the same standard. Now, what goes into this? What goes into this is a global unique identifier that you as the controlling marking entity ensure that it is globally unique by following a construct. We have webinars that describe how all of that process works as well. But the idea here is that you're not only marking the end items, but you're marking the relevant embedded items and embedded parts in more of a sophisticated assembly. But of course, this also applies to spare parts and so forth. The last thing to note here is that when you're marking items, you're marking an item in a way with a physical barcode that lasts the full life cycle of that item. So you want to make sure that the mark, if it's a 5-year item or a 10-year item or even a 30-year item, you want to make sure that the mark itself, when you apply it to a nameplate, or if you're doing any direct part marking, is going to last the full life cycle of that item. So that's a little bit about the underpinnings of IUID and how it plays a role in all of this audit readiness.